Is there a limit to how large a company can grow in a highly competitive environment? Naturally, companies want to maximize profit and aim for the highest market share they can achieve in a category, but are consumers comfortable with large companies? Larger companies have economic benefits, reduction of manufacturing costs and lower prices for consumers, for example. But while consumers enjoy lower prices, they also want variety and may choose competing products over large companies. These choices can limit how large a company can grow within a category. Procter & Gamble's Tide owns 60% of the laundry detergent share in the US. Unilever has 38% of the share of deodorants in Western Europe. Coca-Cola owns 40% of the share of all soft drinks in Latin America, and Danone has a 24% share of yogurt and sour milk products in Western Europe. In these examples, all companies are clear category leaders, but the category shares vary between them. Using Euromonitor's CAMI competitor analytics tool, we've created the following graph. This tells us what percentage of global industry sales are covered by the top 10 largest companies. We can see here that tobacco is the most concentrated industry, with the 10 largest tobacco companies covering 92% of all industry sales. The second largest is pet care, with the top 10 companies covering 77% of all sales, led by Mars and Nestle. Apparel and packaged food are the least concentrated. We could infer from this chart that consumers demand the most variety in food and clothes, and it's harder for companies to reach high shares in these industries. Our next graph shows what percentage of global industry sales are covered by the top 10 largest companies. Consumer electronics is now near the top, with the top 100 companies covering 98% of all industry sales. Interestingly, in all industries covered, the top 100 companies make up at least 50% of all industry sales, even in our least concentrated examples from the previous graph. So, what level of category share is realistic for a company in each industry? The following chart examines Procter & Gamble, who are present across thousands of country and category combinations with varying market share percentages. In some categories, they are leaders, such as laundry detergents in the US with Tide, or men's shaving with Gillette. In other categories, they have lower shares. In the next graph, we see some of the largest FMCG companies mapped according to the percentage of revenues from categories where they are market leaders, that's the y-axis, and the average market share across all categories they are present on the x-axis. As you can see, P&G is somewhere in the middle. There are some categories where P&G are strong. In fact, about 50% of P&G's revenues come from categories where they are market leaders, but the average market share in categories where P&G is present is only about 15%, which is not very high. Coca-Cola is another example. They're category leaders in most markets. 72% of revenues are from categories where they are leaders, and on average, they have 26% share of the market. The largest concentration is again in tobacco. Altria, for example, has an average share of 35% in its market, although it's present mainly in the US. We see here that the majority of successful multinational companies fall in the middle between 10% and 15%, so we could call it the realistic level for a category leader.